Sage ERP AR on autopilot to reduce receivables by 20% in just 6 months. Jim is an industry veteran. He's been doing this for years. And I'm going to go ahead and let him get started. Thank you so much, Jim.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrienne. And I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to be sharing some information with you that I think is going to be very beneficial to all the organizations on the call today. So without further ado, let's dig right in. The first section we're going to talk about is kind of the problem that we're looking to resolve. We call it the accounts receivable crisis, and I wanted to share some information with you. We recently did a webinar with an organization called PayStream Advisors, and PayStream works with a number of different organizations. They basically monitor what's going on with really the financial supply chain, if you will, so on the payable side and the receivable side. And one of the pieces of information that they shared was actually from the Credit Research Foundation, and this was a study that they did really for larger companies, probably larger than a lot of the companies that we have online today. But I think it's relevant information to share. If you look at accounts receivable, only 26% of businesses, according to this study, have automated some portion of their accounts receivable collections. Now, I want to remind you, this is for large organizations. After talking with PayStream Advisors, they feel that that number is significantly higher. 26% is significantly higher than reality when you get into the mid-market. Most of you on the call today are probably managing your AR, using some very manual processes, printing out aging reports, working in Excel files, maybe making some notes on customer accounts, customer memos within, some of the Sage applications you might be using, or Intuit or Intact or what have you. So you can see that there's really not a lot of adoption for applications like Anytime Collect, and we're going to talk about why that is and what Anytime Collect brings to your organization that I think is a very compelling reason to take a look and implement some solutions. So one other thing, this was we participated with PayStream in a recent study they did. And they've looked at traditional collections versus an automated collection process with an application like Anytime Collect. And the big thing you're going to notice here is kind of that big orange, kind of burnt orange side of the equation here, and that's solicitation. If you use an automated solution like Anytime Collect, that frees you up to do a lot more time making those kind of critical credit collections calls and activities to get paid on time more frequently. And that's just, it makes perfect sense when you think about it. So let's talk a little bit about what PayStream is calling revenue cycle management, which is really what Anytime Collect is. Again, this is according to PayStream. They've studied this market for over a decade. The promise of revenue cycle management is to dramatically improve receivables performance. By using collections automation alone, many companies have seen reductions of 10 to 20% reduction in DSO, or your day sales outstanding, which is probably the key metric that you want to look at when it comes to how effective you are with your accounts receivable and your credit and collections. 25% reduction in past due receivables, and a 15 to 25% reduction in your bad debt reserves or write-offs. Okay? So that's what RCM brings to the table, and there's obviously a lot of ancillary benefits, reductions in labor, increased cash flow, just better health of your financials overall. Something else from the PayStream report. They said with the advent of software as a service, or SaaS, cloud-based computing, the scale has become less of an issue. Now, in many cases, companies look at scale and they say, all right, well, scale up, right? I want to go to the large organizations. What we've done with SaaS, or cloud computing, is we've brought the functionality that has typically been available only for the larger organizations down to a level where really the smallest of organizations, even a mid-market company, which is really kind of the core of our target, being a company on a Sage ERP application or a Microsoft ERP, down to, a QuickBooks level customer. These applications have never been available to those audiences to the degree they are with Anytime Collect, because with SaaS, we can deploy these, we build out the integrations so that they're very seamless, and they're very affordable. And when I say affordable, Anytime Collect starts at $89 a month per user, and there's a lot of companies that are spending more than that in a cell phone bill. So, a lot of reasons why we're really excited to be talking about Anytime Collect with you guys today. So one of the things that I've added to this presentation that we didn't have previously, this will be a nice surprise probably for Adrian, is we're going to focus on a case study. We have a customer that we've worked with called Systems Maintenance Services, and we recently did a webinar with them that absolutely blew our minds, so we wanted to share some of those results with you. Little profile on Systems Maintenance. Been in business since 1981, 32 years. They have 600 employees, operating out of about 90 global service centers. They've got 3,100 customers, which many of you on the call today probably have 3,100 or more customers. But their customers are really kind of a who's who of business. 60% of their customers, their customers represent 60% of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, so they're working with some pretty large companies. And one of the things they really pride themselves on is providing excellent customer service in all aspects of their business. And you can see that they've done a great job there with a 99.7% customer retention rating. So a little bit about what they do. They provide kind of outsourced service maintenance, if you will. So if I'm an organization and I've got a network, I've got servers, I would contract the systems maintenance. They would come in, they would do the backups, they would replace drives, they would do off-site data recovery, all that, security. So all those types of services they provide to really the big boys in the industry. So they came to us, it was well over a year ago, and they had a problem, like many of you on the phone today. They really didn't have a good handle on their collections. It was kind of like this black hole where they, from their accounting system, they're using Sage 500 ERP. They could create an invoice. They could even automate to get the invoice sent out to the customer. But then there was this kind of black hole that happens where what happens between when the invoice goes out and when the due date hits. They really didn't know if the customer had a dispute, if the invoice was right, if they had a question, or if they were even going to get paid on it. And to make matters worse, they had 4 collectors spread across 3 states, so it was very difficult for them to kind of organize their larger credit and collections team. Now, I do understand a lot of you on the phone today may only have one person handling credit and collections, and that's perfectly fine. But you do face a lot of the similar issues that they were facing, and that's you have some data in your accounting application, you have maybe contact information in a CRM application, you've got maybe some offline Excel spreadsheets that you're managing, and it really becomes quite difficult to manage that process effectively. They really had no centralized system. Again, spreadsheets rampant throughout their organization, no management reporting, and at the time they had 2,000 customers and were processing about 3,000 invoices monthly. So maybe a little bigger than some of you on the line today, but I'm sure a lot of you can kind of relate to the situation that they were in. Now, kind of tied into this, if we look at the bottom here, PayStream Advisors, this was a quote from the 2013 report. ERP vendors lack the narrow focus necessary to address all the variations and unique situations that affect trade receivables. I don't want to knock Sage, I don't want to knock Epicor or Intact or Intuit. They provide some really solid accounting applications, but the fact of the matter is they're not experts in revenue cycle management. They're not experts in every aspect of those business systems, and that's why we developed Anytime Collect. We saw a market need out there. For companies using Oracle and SAP, there are systems like Anytime Collect, so that market was addressed. But you get down into the mid-market, into the Sage world, the Microsoft world, Epicor, Intact, Infor, Macola, you name it, and there really wasn't a solution to help these companies automate their accounts receivable and really get paid quicker, reduce some of their credit risks. And I'm really excited to be able to show you what we've done with systems maintenance. A couple other things before we get into the results that they saw with the product. They had some very complex invoices, many of them spanning months to years, as you can imagine. If I'm performing services on some of these large organization systems, yeah, I could have invoices out there, for a couple-month project up to a couple of years. Their invoice detail was very complex, up to tens of thousands of lines, making it a little more tricky, especially when they had to deal with a dispute. And a lot of times, these decentralized credit collections people had to get down to the actual service engineer that performed the service for the customer to find out what exactly happened and why is there a dispute. So very, very complicated there. The other thing that they struggled with, which many of you may as well, is that if you have a larger organization, you have people with different skill sets, and they didn't really have a way to balance everybody's strengths with the tasks that were at hand when it came to managing their accounts receivable. Some people are better at making the initial phone call. Some people are better at managing disputes. Some people are better at putting the hammer down on a customer when the time needs to, when it's really time to say enough's enough, you guys have to pay us. So, they really were kind of struggling all over the place with the system. So some more of their problems. Here was the big one, difficulty coordinating between multiple reps. So they would get a list of all the past due invoices that were out in the system that needed followed up on. They would split them out into different Excel lists. They'd put them out on a network share or a SharePoint directory. And then they had these problems, right? So I'm a collection rep, and I'm saying I've contacted everybody on my list. Now what should I do, right? I don't have anything else left to do. Meanwhile, they had other people handling collections, and they were behind. They couldn't make all the phone calls that they needed to. So that was kind of a balancing act for them. Worst case scenario, even though they were breaking these spreadsheets up, there were situations where, I might make a phone call to a customer, and then 5 minutes later, Adrian's making the same phone call to the customer. And we're talking about the same thing. So it wasn't a unified strategy. It definitely didn't help their customer service at all. Difficulty reviewing history and escalations. Again, if you can imagine not having a centralized system. Well, when was the last time I made a phone call? What were the results of that? Hey, I've got 2 invoices that are in dispute. How long have they been in dispute? Why are they in dispute? What actions have we taken? Where's the background emails related to this issue that I'm trying to resolve? There's all this information that was just kind of scattered all over the place. And then what would happen is, if I'm trying to handle a dispute and I need to escalate it to a manager, to a CFO, or to a sales rep or somebody, I would have to go into my personal inbox and dig through all of this communication, try to organize it, and then have a debrief with the person I'm handing off to. The net result here is that they weren't very effective with their credit collections management. They had looked at their previous 3 months, and their day sales outstanding was at 67. Now, mind you, I don't know their exact terms, but I believe on average their credit terms to the customers are about 28 to 30 days. So you can see that they had a lot of room for improvement. And most people we talk to don't even know where their DSO is at. We can actually help you calculate that. But if you're offering that 30 terms, sorry about that, I have an app that keeps popping up. If you have net 30 terms, then you should expect to be paid, close to 30 days, right? The industry average, believe it or not, is about 61 for DSO, but the industry average for credit terms is about 28. So you can do the math. Most companies aren't very effective in this area. So let's talk about what they did. We were very blessed to have an absolutely incredible contact with Systems Maintenance Services, a visionary that had an idea of where they wanted to go. And they set some goals with us for the system. They wanted something that was measurable. very metrics driven, right? So they wanted to know, where am I spending my time in credit collections, and what impact is that having on my ability to get paid on the products and services I provided to my customers. They knew there was a better way to do it than using Excel and printing out alphabetic lists of customers from agent reports. They needed a better way to escalate with tracking, with access to the history. They didn't want to have to dig through emails. They didn't want to have to do all this other manual process stuff that they've been doing before. And at the end, they said, you know what, we're going to set some pretty realistic goals. If we're offering on average about net 30 terms, we'd like to get paid within the first 30 to 60 days. And in fact, we'd like to get our DSO down from 67 to 55 just by using a system for a year. So let's take a look at what happened there. The first thing, though, I do want to talk about is this thing called the Pareto principle. And this has to do with prioritizing. Every one of you on the call today, I'm sure this applies to. You've got 20% of your customers that represent 80% of your revenue. Those 20% of your customers also represent 80% of your delinquencies. So what a system like Anytime Collect allows you to do is to put more emphasis on those areas. And I'm going to give you some examples of how you can do that and how systems maintenance did that. Okay. One of the things they were able to do is they were able to institute this process where every single customer was called on every single late invoice. And I know that sounds like it might be unmanageable. You may not have a full-time resource available within your organization, but I assure you that with some automation, we're able to make this happen for you. One last point, I forgot all the slides I put in here before we get to the results. A lot of companies try to implement a CRM application to manage credit collections. And certainly there are some plugins to like Sage CRM and some of the other popular CRM applications on the market. But to me, the difference between RCM and CRM ends beyond the fact that they are, three-letter acronyms. They both include the same letters, and they both allow you to document what you've done, right? I can go into CRM and say I made a phone call, I sent an email. But the big difference in my mind is the logic. Anytime Collect and other RCM applications tell you what you need to do based on rules and alerts and workflow. Sure, you could maybe build some of this into some of the CRM systems on the market, but why would you need to do that if we have a solution that is CRM developed for credit collections? And I'm going to show you what that means when it comes to putting your accounts receivable on autopilot. Okay. Again, PageStream, this is just kind of a lead into the results we've got here. The key innovation of business-to-business collection software is workflow automation. I've highlighted that because that's what we're talking about today, putting your accounts receivable on autopilot. It's workflow automation. It's a strategy engine that integrates the AR data with a tickler system and activity logs so that account status and previous actions can drive the next logical collection step. Let's take a second there. What I'm talking about is that we can use the data, the accounts receivable information from your Sage system, from your Microsoft system, from your Intact or Intuit system to determine what happens next in the process. And you don't need somebody to think about this. This is the system telling you what you need to do or what it needs to do for you. It gives you the ability to prioritize your activities, ensuring a consistent and efficient process, integrated communication tools for faxing, email, reprinting invoices, et cetera, okay? Let's talk about some things that you can do with the Anytime Collect workflow and rules engine. And, examples are probably the best way to take a look at it. We can build workflow and alerts off of any of the information that we bring into the system. That includes account level information, so things like account agings, credit limits, things like that. Invoice information, which is probably the most relevant to the audience today. We can do workflow based on what we call a credit class. So I might have a different workflow for my industrial accounts versus commercial accounts versus government accounts. I can separate new accounts versus established accounts, so that I can even tweak the language so I'm not, really making my top customers upset by sending them threatening, communication. Some examples of what you can do. If you have a customer approaching a credit limit, you can have Anytime Collect send a notification to the assigned credit rep, letting them know, hey, they may have an account in good standing, but they've been buying a lot more. Maybe you should call them and talk about extending their credit limit, their purchasing power. If you have a customer that their average days to pay is over 45 days, maybe you want to have the system create an activity for your collector just so they know to monitor that account. Or maybe you want to monitor, if their average days to pay is increasing or decreasing. Invoice level workflow and rules. Wouldn't it be great if before an invoice was due, you could have a system that would look out there and say, all right, well, here's 100 invoices. They're going to be due in the next 3 days or 5 days or what have you, and I have not been paid in full. The system can automatically send an email to the contact or multiple contacts at that account, or at those accounts, I should say, because it can go across accounts, attach a copy of the invoice and say, hey, by the way, we have these invoices. They're going to be due in the next 3 days. We haven't received payment in full. Can you please remit payment in full? Oh, by the way, here's a copy of the invoice. Because as we all know, that's the #1 excuse for non-payment. Why would you pay somebody to do that? Nobody's doing that today. But with a system like Anytime Collect, the system can do this for you. Again, accounts receivable on autopilot. We can then set up some escalations, right? So what happens the minute that customer goes past due on an invoice, or maybe 5 days past due? You can have the system automatically send out a past due notice, or maybe a more threatening letter for a different credit class. What do you do at 10 days past due or 30 days past due? At some point, you can have the system create a phone call activity within Anytime Collect, assign it to the credit rep or the person in the organization that's responsible for making those phone calls, tag it to the invoices that violated that rule so they know what they're talking about, and then it's a no-brainer. They don't have to think about who do I need to call. They don't have to print an aging report and sort it in ascending order. They don't have to find out, who did I call last time. The system has the logic to say, this is who you're calling, this is why you're calling, now go make the phone call. And then when you're done, kind of the traditional CRM workflow kicks in, and you can say, yeah, I made a phone call, I left a voicemail, I'm going to follow up next week. At what point in time do you want to send invoices off or sell them off for factoring or send third-party collections? That can all be built into your workflow. So a couple of the things here, these are some screens from the software. I just wanted to give you a picture of what this looks like. This is a fairly sophisticated one. We've got the different credit classes here. You can see I've got government customers, I've got new customers, strategic accounts, and customers that I've decided to group into kind of a credit watch grouping. And each of these can have different rules and sequences of rules that I set up. And you can see what that sequence looks like here. So I have credit hold rules, emailing statements, that one's inactive. Just an account note to the rep when they're over their credit limit, email reminders, second reminders, third reminders, fourth reminders with a past due, P1, which is my first attempt phone call, second attempt phone call, third attempt phone calls. And all of this I can organize into a sequence of events that's going to occur. Some automated, that's hands-off, and I really don't have to do anything except process the rules and alerts. Others where it's going to schedule an activity for me on my calendar. Okay. When I get into actually define the rules and the workflow and the alerts, basically what I have is every bit of the data available to me. And what I mean by that, this is the invoice view that we use to filter our invoice level workflow and alerts. And you can see here that we've got due date days of 60 defined. And what that means is that if we have invoices that are over 60 days from their due date, that's when this rule, this third attempt or last attempt phone call, is going to create the activity for my collector. And you can see I've got all the companies and all the invoices here below that have violated that rule, and will trigger that alert. Okay. But if I wanted to, I could filter this down. You can see I have the company ID here. This is your ERP company ID. So if you have multiple companies, you can have different workflow, different alerts based on companies. I could base it on postal codes, sales reps, states, territories, customer classes. Any of the data I can use to filter and configure this workflow. So very, very powerful, but very, very easy. And then the net result of that is what I'm looking at here. The system has created all these alerts for me. I can see that I've got this organized actually by user. So I've got the unassigned user, which is kind of a group of accounts that we share in our collections team. I've got John Doucette as 8 items, and myself, James Mallory, I've got 8 items. Of those items, what do I have to do? Well, all the email can be automated, and then, or it could be actually added to my queue, and then I can go ahead and do the email. It also tells me what phone calls I need to make. The other thing that it can do is it can schedule it on a calendar. It can schedule it as an all-day activity, which appears kind of here at the top on Tuesday. And I can drag that around on my calendar and figure out when exactly do I want to make that phone call. And I right-click right from there, and I can go right into the activity, and it's got all the details telling me what I need to do. Okay. So that's what we do with the auto, putting your accounts receivable on autopilot. Let's talk a little bit about what systems maintenance was able to do. Their model was a little different than what we've seen, but it certainly has worked quite well for them. They divided their workflow into really 4 levels. So in level 1, they've got one person that makes every phone call for every invoice that is past due. And that person really is spending very little time trying to make resolutions on these. It's like the first touch, right? And a lot of these scenarios can be resolved pretty quick. Sometimes just reminding the customer that, hey, you're past due is enough. Or if there's a dispute and they can resolve it real quick, you know, we charged you tax and you're tax exempt. That's fine. We'll fix that. We'll resend you the invoice. Go ahead and make a payment. We're done. Wrong shipping rates. We have an RMA in process. So we'll go ahead and, you know, remove this from the queue. We'll wait for the RMA to take care of itself. So a lot of those little things can be resolved at kind of in that level 1 stage. As you can imagine, that person is very busy. They're doing a lot of activities. They call them tickets. But from there, things get escalated into level 2. Level 2 are typically those scenarios within the organization that require a little bit more research. So maybe a more sophisticated dispute where they need to get down to that field engineer. Much smaller, manageable ticket volume. And I should say that very little gets beyond level 1. That does, and level 2, very little gets beyond there into level 3. At level 3, they've identified some issues that could potentially lead to a credit hold situation for the customer, and where they really do need to probably escalate this to management for coordinating maybe a payment plan or looking at other options. Level 4 is very infrequent in their business today, but that's the point where the customer is placed on credit hold and they're looking at actually writing off that debt. So that's kind of what they've done with the workflow and the rules. Let's take a look at the fun part. This is the results. And I want to frame this in the perspective of what PayStream says is occurring with RCM. With RCM, there's really 3 areas that you're going to gain some value. One is in processing efficiency, lowering your costs, and then having enhanced visibility and control. And I want to show you what systems maintenance has been able to do in each of these 3 areas. When it comes to processing efficiency, one of the things that they do is we have a product that's an optional piece called Anytime Docs. What it allows you to do is when I'm printing my invoices out of my accounting system, I print through Anytime Docs. It creates the PDF of that invoice and then files it on a network drive or a share. A lot of companies have document management solutions, so you don't have to use Anytime Docs, but if you don't have a piece today, I'm going to give you an example. If I'm printing out a batch of 100 invoices, I don't want to get one PDF with all 100 invoices in it. I want one PDF for each of those 100 invoices. And then I want it filed so that I can access it as a collector, and I want to access it from the system so that when I'm automatically sending out my reminder notices or my past due notices to my customers, I can grab that PDF and attach it to the email. That's what we're doing with the Anytime Docs. And that has saved systems maintenance just a ton of time because they don't have to go back into their system and reprint the invoice, attach it to an email, and send it out. It's all automated. The other thing that they're able to do with the system is to generate statements on the fly. And these are point-in-time statements. They don't have to go and grab something that's outdated. We have all the data available so we know where that customer is at this point in time. Again, processing efficiency, emails can be automatically sent. Those that don't get sent automatically, all the information is there, a couple mouse clicks. They can create an email from the application, do their attachments, and send it out. They have a lot of automated communications based on the rules that we talked about. So it's actually scheduling the activities for the collectors. Account assignment or reassignment. You know, once it gets beyond level 1, it automatically takes that credit issue and moves it into level 2 and assigns it to somebody else. So you don't have to do this manually. CRM capabilities, you know, they've got the ability to document the phone calls so that anybody can look at that history and find out what happened. They can look at the emails. We do also track the inbound email. So if I send an email to a customer about a credit issue I'm trying to manage and they respond back to me, that inbound email is tracked right back into the system. So again, no digging around personal inboxes. Everything is right within one application. And then really here at the bottom, one system. No spreadsheets, no CRM. You don't have to go back into the accounting system. You can work directly from Anytime Collect to do 99% of what you need to do. Lowering costs. As you can imagine, with a lot of this optimization, a lot of this automation, significant reductions in labor. You have a lot less hands on deck, a lot less spreadsheets. What they were able to do is they were able to take and reallocate 50% of one of their credit managers' times to more critical activities. Significant reduction in outstanding AR, significant increase cash flow, shorten their sales to cash cycle time. And now let's talk about some of the hard metrics. Their days sales outstanding, if you remember, was at 67. Their target was 55. At the end of 1 year, by automating with Anytime Collect, they were able to take their DSO down to 49 days. That's 6 points below their target. Now, if you exclude 2 accounts, just 2 of their 3,100 customers that are their kind of more difficult accounts, their DSO was actually reduced to 40 days within 1 year of using Anytime Collect. That is absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about some of the visibility and control. Notes and attachments all in one place, not spread all over God's green earth. History for escalations available. Advantages for history, and they do get audited, so they had all the information available for their audits. Collections activities, everything they do from a collection standpoint is measurable, and everybody is accountable. They can use the software to drive measurable and desired results. They have all the AP contacts that they need now within one application. Instant access to account aging, invoices, payment history, and every other piece of information related to that account. And in their words, the ability to act instead of react to outstanding accounts. Equal and measurable workload, so they don't have to worry about one person not having enough to do. Internal audits, they're prepared for them. And because of the simplistic nature of the application, they're actually able to take the data and deploy it out via an intranet so that their sales reps can access some of this information. So when they're going out to make phone calls or make account calls, they have some of this information can act as an extension of the credit collections department to facilitate payment on past due invoices. Let's take a look at the numbers here. Again, 67 DSO before Anytime Collect. After Anytime Collect, 49. If you exclude those 2 accounts, that's 40. What is that? That's a 40% reduction in day sales outstanding. If you remember, and I have it here at the bottom, PayStream said that companies that implement systems like ours get about a 10 to 20% reduction in DSO. I'm showing a case study here where it can be even better. What does that mean to systems maintenance, and what can it mean for your organization? 27 days their cash is sitting in their bank account and not in their AR. That's almost a month improvement in their cash flow. What could you do with that kind of cash in your business? All right, now we did a webinar with them recently with systems maintenance, and I literally almost fell off my chair. They collected more money than they invoiced last year. They were able to do this because given the tools and the automation that they had with Anytime Collect, and given the fact that they had some policies and procedures in place, they collected just about everything they invoiced last year, but then they were also able to go back over after past due balances from the previous year and maybe even previous years. I didn't ask them how far back they went, but they collected more than they invoiced last year. And that to me is just a phenomenal statement on what's possible by spending a little time focusing on accounts receivable, which, by the way, is, in most cases, your number one or your number two asset within your organization. And I wanted to throw this up here. For those of you on the call that might be wondering, you know, can I get these types of results? In most cases you can, in some cases maybe not. If you go to anytimecollect.com, that's our website, there's a button that says Calculate Your ROI, and it'll bring up this screen here. If you go ahead and put in some of this information, your current AR balance, annual credit sales, you know, how much you're selling annually, the cost of borrowing money, typically 6%, and your bad debt write-offs either as a percent or as an amount. Go in, again, you know, you could put in what do you expect to receive here from a value. You know, DSO reduction, maybe you want to be conservative and go with 15%. Bad debt write-offs, reduce those by about 20%. Put in the number of users you would expect and click the Calculate button. And you can find out if Anytime Collect can save you money, and if so, what's your ROI and what's, you know, the payback period. Honestly, I mean, we're all numbers people on the call today. We all understand the value of money. You're not going to buy something that doesn't have value, but I think it's pretty clear to see that if you use a calculator like this, if you're not using Anytime Collect, then you're paying for it even though you don't have it, because there is so much room to improve this process within your organization. So we're going to conclude the webinar today. I do want to wrap up by saying I've got my contact information up here on the screen. We do have a video resource center available on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/e2btech, we've got some videos out there that you can watch, some actual product demonstrations that will show you the application in a lot more detail. We do also have two white papers or resources available. If you would like a copy of those, please contact me or anybody in our organization. Will make sure that we get that to you. One is the PayStream Revenue Cycle Management Guide. Another is 17 things you should be doing right now to reduce outstanding accounts receivable. It's got tips you can do really without Anytime Collect, but certainly some other tips in there as well with some automation. I think that's about it right now, Adrian, so I think we're going to kick it back over to you for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Jim. That was a great presentation. We do have one question. What is the cost, just the ballpark cost for this?
Gotcha. And you know, we do publish the pricing on our website, so if you go to anytimecollect.com, you can click on the pricing section and get more detailed information. I'll give you a summary on the phone, though. The pricing, we're very flexible. You can either go with an outright purchase of the software, and that's by user. We also have some light users, sales rep users. On average, you're looking at maybe, I'd say right around $1,500 to maybe $3,000, perhaps a little bit more on a purchase of the application. We do also offer it in a subscription model, which starts at $89 a month. Most of our customers see the value in the automation, so they're going with the $149 per month per user price. So again, very, very affordable. On top of the actual pricing for the software licensing, we do provide a fixed bid implementation. Most customers are implemented in about 2 to 4 hours. From a duration standpoint, it's maybe up to 8 hours worth of time. We do that all at a fixed fee. It's I think right around $1,000 for that. It gives you all of the setup, remote setup assistance, administrative training, setting up the sync to pull in the data from your accounting applications, creating some custom reports, setting up the workflow and the alerts, and even training your end users. So we've tried to keep the pricing really turnkey to keep your costs down so you can get up and running really, really fast.
And I do have a poll open on the screen. If I may ask the audience if you can answer that poll, that would be great. And then just to remind you, if you do have any questions, just click on the question mark and indicate your question, and we will read your question loud. If you'd like to ask your question live, go ahead and click on the hand, and that I will unmute your line at that point, and we can collaborate live. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll out, and I'm going to share the results. So it looks like we have 75% using highlighter and aging report. I'm going to hide that poll, and I'm going to share another poll. So would you like more information about Anytime Collect? See, 50% of you have voted.
While you wait for the rest of those poll results, Adrian, one of the common questions we get is integration. And we do have out-of-the-box integrations that we manage for most of the popular accounting applications. Certainly QuickBooks, Sage Mass, I guess Sage 100, 300, 500, Sage 50 US being Peachtree, as well as others. But even if there's people on the call today that are using another application, we do have a CSV flat file interface that we've used successfully to integrate to just about every other application out there on the market. So, we can integrate with pretty much anything out there.
And we also encourage you to work with your reseller as well. Your reseller knows about this solution and can help you do further research if you should desire. And I don't see... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's a great point, Adrian, because I know we do have some partners on the call today. Our go-to-market strategy really is a channel-focused strategy. So if there are channel partners on the line, we'd love to talk to you more about representing the product and doing some presentations to your customers and prospects. If you are a company on the line today and you are working with another partner, our preferred method is to work with your partner because they know your business system better than we do. And, we like to build those relationships so that everybody wins in the end.
And I'm just going to look real quick, see if we have any other questions. I don't see any. And we have 67% who voted on this last poll. So I'm going to leave it up for another minute. But Jim, did you have anything else to close with?
Oh, let's see here. I mean, I can give a little update on some of the recent developments with the product. We did recently launch a new dashboard for the application, so we're providing a lot more information online than we ever did before. It's all secured, but one of the things that it does allow you to do if you go with the hosted version of the software is it allows you to deploy some of this information to your customers in a self-service environment. It also allows you to deploy some of the top-level metrics to maybe your more senior management, your CEO, your president, who aren't going to be living in your accounting application but want to know where their money's at. So that information is available in some of the demonstrations we have out on the YouTube channel.
So perfect. Well, thank you very much again, Jim, for sharing your expertise with us and this product. If anyone has any questions, we will be in touch with you in your reseller as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close it out. If there's nothing else, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Excellent. Thank you again, Adrian.
All right, Jim. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.